everybody, my name is Kati Morton and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and today we're going to talk about the 4 types of borderline personality disorder. And if you like videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe, it really does help. So let's jump into those 4 types. A member of our community recently asked me my thoughts on these 4 types of BPD, and to be honest, I hadn't heard of these before, and I didn't know that there were more than one type of BPD. But I did some research and I found out that there was a book written in 1995 by Theodore Millon, I assume I'm saying that right, probably not, called Disorders of Personality, DSM-4 and Beyond. And in this book, he identifies 4 types of borderline personality disorder, or BPD. Now I'm going to be referencing my notes so that I don't forget, but the first type of BPD that he talks about is called discouraged. Now, people who are discouraged have this intense fear of abandonment, which we know is part of the diagnosis of BPD. And if you want to go through the entire diagnostic criteria, I will link my video about BPD in the description, and that can help walk you through. This intense fear of abandonment can be real or imagined, which I always think is a really important thing to think about. It doesn't have to be happening. It could be something that we think might happen. Also, people with the discouraged type of BPD can be clingy and more people-pleasing, meaning that we're going to do things to make other people happy, often over our own happiness. We can also go along with whatever's happening, even if we don't agree or it feels like it might be wrong. We'll just go along, again, because we can be people-pleasing and we want other people to be happy because we don't want them to leave us. And kind of as a result of all of these symptoms, we can find ourselves codependent or enmeshed. Now, being codependent means that we have an excessive psychological or emotional reliance on someone, meaning that their mood or experience can affect us. So we don't really have like this secure sense of self. Now, moving on to enmeshment, enmeshment is when we don't have any boundaries. Therefore, it's not me thinking about things, it's us. And I can struggle to be independent, make decisions on my own. All the time I'm thinking of this other person, right? Of the us, and making decisions for us as a unit. Those of us with this discouraged type can also struggle with self-worth, and we can feel empty a lot and struggle to really know who we truly are. I want to take a minute to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. We get our cars serviced to prevent bigger issues down the road. We work out and visit the doctor to prevent injury and disease in our bodies. And we see the dentist to prevent cavities. Going to therapy is just as important. It's routine maintenance for your mental and emotional wellness. It doesn't mean anything is wrong with you. It means you're investing in yourself to keep your mind healthy. With BetterHelp, you can access their network of over 20,000 licensed therapists. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. If you have ever searched for a counselor in your area, you know how long it can take to find someone good, or to even get a call back. With BetterHelp, you can start communicating in as little as 48 hours, and it's available worldwide. Click the link at the top of the description to get 10% off your first month. Go to betterhelp.com/Kati. And I think we can all understand that if we're enmeshed or codependent, it can be really difficult for us to think of ourselves on our own and figure out who we really are when we're relying on other people or busy people pleasing and doing all these things, almost like keeping all these plates spinning so that we're not abandoned. And this is the type of BPD where I think the quote-unquote quiet borderline would fall. And if you don't know what I mean by quiet borderline, it's when instead of our borderline traits, like impulsivity or emotional reactivity, instead of them being outwardly expressed towards other people affecting our relationships, we turn all of those feelings and emotions inward, and we can have things like suicide attempts or suicidal thoughts, self-injury, intense depressive episodes, and things like that. Let's move on to the second type of BPD, and that is called impulsive. And you can already kind of see where this is going, right? Someone with this type would do things without giving it much thought. This can lead to us spending a lot of money. We could struggle with gambling, binge eating. We can be involved in sexually dangerous behavior, meaning like sleeping with people we don't know, unprotected sex, having multiple sexual partners at once. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with exploring your sexuality. This is just done as a symptom of our BPD without giving it any thought at all. These impulsive behaviors that we take part in are really risky. I think that's the key there. It's not that we're just acting on impulse and not giving it much thought. It's also that these things could be dangerous, right? We could spend all of our savings and not be able to pay our rent, or we could get an STD from having unprotected sex with someone. There's some risk involved in these impulsive behaviors. And people with this type also tend to be incredibly outgoing and charismatic, which I don't think we often consider when it comes to a diagnosis of BPD. But if we think about it, if we're really impulsive and living in that kind of space of excitement and reactivity, that can make us really fun to be around. We've all had that friend, right? That's like a walking party just in and of themselves. They get you excited. They're always up for something. That would be this type of person. This type can also be really, really high energy. We can get bored easily. Again, kind of leaning into that charismatic, exciting part, right? We're always wanting to change things up. We can be really impulsive, which can cause us to, if we're not feeling happy and good, we can start fights. We can get really angry and lash out and even sometimes harm other people. We can be kind of dangerous because if we think about it, the impulsivity factor, that lack of critical thought or making a decision on something, just doing it, can be good or bad depending on how we're feeling. The third type of BPD is self-destructive. And this means we can sabotage our own career and goals and path or our relationships. And this may be something that we're aware of, but most likely we're not. And this self-destructive type can come out of kind of our self-loathing, our suicidal thoughts and behaviors, our self-injury, our feelings of emptiness, and our lack of self-worth. You can see how all of that kind of what I'd call the ick of BPD can lead us to act in self-destructive ways. Those of us in this self-destructive type tend to focus on more demeaning or long-term hurtful things like doing illicit drugs, engaging in risky sexual behaviors, started picking a fight with our boss, right? That can all lead down the line to more harmful and upsetting situations. We can also find ourselves self-injuring a lot, kind of as a way to just feel something. A lot of people in this self-destructive type feel really numbed out, almost completely disconnected from themselves and their life. And so we can act in certain ways that may be harmful or hurtful just as a way to kind of feel alive. And because we're doing all of these demeaning and destructive behaviors, we can feel really bad about our life. We can think that everything is just falling apart. We can have a really pessimistic outlook on our life, short-term and long-term. And the fourth type of BPD is known as petulant. And this is really, I feel like, the type that encompasses the mood dysregulation that we can experience when we have BPD. That means that we can feel excited and happy one minute and bitter and rage-filled the next. And these mood shifts can last for seconds or sometimes days, and for many, even weeks. We can even show inappropriate and intense anger and find ourselves lashing out at those we love. This type would also be where splitting behavior happens. And if you don't know what splitting behavior is, it's believing people are all good or all bad. Often when we struggle with BPD and someone comes into our lives at the beginning, we think they're perfect and amazing, and we put them up on this pedestal. Look at this person. They're so lovely to me. I love them so much. They're so perfect, amazing. It's almost like that love bombing sensation. We can get that at the beginning. So amazing. And then maybe they're not available one day, or they do something that kind of hurts our feelings. I always like to think of people with BPD as emotional burn victims. Any slight is incredibly painful, and it's really hard for us to get over it. And so when someone that we think is amazing and perfect does something that is hurtful to us in some way, then we immediately, because of our fear of abandonment, want to throw them out the door. We're like, I can't trust you, you're horrible, and you're all bad. We go from all good to all bad, hence the term splitting. And this, the petulant type, is where splitting would occur the most often. Those of us in this petulant type can also complain a lot, right? If we're having these mood swings and feeling really dysregulated, nothing's going to feel good and we probably hate everything. So we can be that kind of whiny type person, and we can also be incredibly stubborn, not wanting to give at all, again, because we feel so dysregulated. And finally, we can feel torn between wanting to be left alone and wanting a lot of people around. We can want people around for their love and support and attention and all the things that we all need, but then we're afraid if we let them in that they're going to hurt us. And so we can't deal with that fear of abandonment. And so we're like, maybe I'd be better off if I was left alone. And we can kind of find ourselves doing this push-pull in relationships, maybe making plans, canceling them, wanting people around, not wanting them around, enjoying our time alone, feeling really suicidal and down because we're alone. And again, it can be really uncomfortable. Overall, I think these 4 types don't need to be broken up like this. I mean, that's just my opinion. I think they're all kind of key components of an entire diagnosis that is BPD. And I'd love to hear from you, any of you with this diagnosis or with traits. Did you feel like you hit more than one type? Because I feel like all of my patients would have. And not to mention, I felt like this author's description or symptoms for each type felt even more incredibly stigmatizing. We all know that BPD is already something that's stigmatized in the mental health space and in our world online. And I just felt like it perpetuated some of those things that I don't believe to be true and I don't like to see out there in the world. And so I really think that overall, BPD is a diagnosis and each and every person is going to experience it differently. And that's okay. And I made a note here that I don't want to forget, because with DBT, or dialectical behavior therapy, we can better manage our symptoms of BPD. Just trust me when I tell you it can and will get better. But I made a little note because I feel like each type listed here from this book would apply to a different module within DBT. If you didn't know, there's different modules in it. For example, like if we're impulsive, we may want to focus on the emotion regulation component. Or if we're discouraged or petulant, we may want to focus more on distress tolerance. Although obviously all 4 modules of DBT are going to be beneficial. But I just want to put that out there, that if you felt like some of these symptoms rang true for you and they were all in this one type, you may want to cater your DBT work to fit around that, because then you'll have more tools and techniques that you can use to feel better today.